Alright, welcome to the Third and Wrong YouTube channel. It is your boy Dillon today, and we are going to be doing a mock draft. This is going to be just a first round mock draft, and I only have one trade on here because it is hard to predict trades, but there's one that I think is likely to happen at this point, so stick around for that. But this mock draft is going to be focusing on moves that have happened after the trade deadline and why some of these players might fall, why they might rise. Different players have different value now that different holes have been filled by the free agency period. So we still have some more to go through with pro days and stuff like that. So we'll keep updating our mock draft here. But I just wanted to get an update here so that way we can kind of talk about what teams have done, but also give you a litmus test for what players might fit well with what teams. So before we get into this video, we would appreciate if you could give us a like, comment, and subscribe. I know I say that every time, but it does definitely help us out. It gives us some feedback that we can keep going with these videos, that you guys like it. So please do that, and we'll get into this mock draft here. Alright, so I've already gone through this mock draft, but I thought it would be fun to go through the PFF mock draft simulator to do this, so that way we can look at all the picks as they happen. So we'll get this started here with the Carolina Panthers. So the Carolina Panthers, I think a lot of people are going to assume that it's either CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson at this pick. But the reason why I think it might be Bryce Young, and I'm going to take him here, is the understanding of offenses and defenses that he has, his play within structure and out of structure, and just everything other than his size would tell you that he's probably he's the number one overall pick. And I don't think Frank Reich is actually going to be as worried about it because he has a chance to rebuild and build around a certain player. And doing so with Bryce Young, I think he can find an offense that will work good. And why not get the person that you don't have to coach as much? So I like Bryce Young here. And really the thing is about him, it is size. I've said this all off season. But if there's going to be a coach that can kind of overlook that, I actually do think Frank Reich might be the guy for that. So I'm going to go Bryce Young with the first overall pick here. And that leads to the second overall pick for the Houston Texans being CJ Stroud. I really like CJ Stroud. I think he goes here in the top 2. I think that, to me, is pretty solid. If not, I would love that because that gives the Colts a chance to grab him. But I take him with the Texans because he's, the next best quarterback. He's got a lot of accuracy, and he still has some things to grow on, but those things he has shown that he can grow. So I do like CJ Stroud a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 1 or 2. But doing number 3, I was trying to think of a trade that would make the most amount of sense, and the Raiders happen to be the one that makes the most amount of sense. The Colts, I don't know if they're so willing to trade up there, and I think they're going to kind of wait and see what the board gives them. So I'm going to give the Raiders the number 3 overall pick, and just to make this trade work, I'm going to just throw some compensation in here. Don't worry about it too much. It's just to get this trade done because we're only doing a first round pick. So a first round mock. So that's the pick here. So the Raiders are on the board, and the reason why I trade up is I think McDaniels really would like to have Anthony Richardson, and that's who I think they would trade up for and give some draft capital to do that. And that puts the Colts in a big pickle because, we can either be forced to take Will Levis, which I'm not really sure is exactly the cup of tea that the Chris Ballards and the Shane Steichens want to do. And so this might be just Will Levis, but I do like to kind of play with what the possibilities are. And I think if it's not a quarterback, I think Tyree Wilson is the guy off the board for the Colts just because of his size, his athletic ability. Plus, our defensive coordinator is great at helping edge talents reach their potential. Max Crosby. We just had, Yannick Ngakoue. And there's a few other Gus Bradley edges that have done really well. So I do like having Tyree Wilson there Will Anderson is better right now, but if you can get, the ceiling out of Tyree Wilson, he could become better than Will Anderson. And that's who I think that the Seattle Seahawks take is Will Anderson at that point. Which brings us to the Detroit Lions. There's a number of picks that they can go here. They did filter out the need for cornerback as much. I don't think it's the worst thing to take a corner, but this high, I don't think it's as pressing of a need. And there's not too many needs for the Lions, so I think taking a Jalen Carter would be really good for them. Jalen Carter didn't get any jail time, and that's huge for his draft position. I think given that this was wrapped up relatively early, this gives teams to kind of realize, okay, maybe we do want to have Jalen Carter, and we're fine with taking him at 6 rather than, trading up or taking him at 2 or 3 or whatever. So Jalen Carter to the Detroit Lions would be crazy with Aiden Hutchinson. And that brings us to the Cardinals. Again, a lot of these teams can go a lot of different ways. I'm just going to go with what I think might be best for the team and, kind of just what might be the best value here. And Nolan Smith, the reason why I'm taking him this high is, one, his speed is phenomenal for his position. He gets the bend. He produces as an edge rusher. He can drop back into coverage as well as an outside linebacker. And I just like his versatility a lot. Plus, there's just rave reviews about his personality, his leadership, and everything. So I think that's a phenomenal pick. I think he goes much higher if he wasn't injured, or not much higher. But I think he goes about here even if he wasn't injured. So I do like Nolan Smith here. And then with the Atlanta Falcons, I was trying to find a position of just, they don't have a guy already there. And it's hard to find that for the Falcons because they have a lot of young talent in certain positions, and then they have some really solid players. And then there's some players that, they could upgrade, but it's like a linebacker or a running back or something like that. And it's like you don't really do that in the first round as much. So with the Falcons here, I'm taking someone that's young, has a lot of position versatility. He's got a lot of strength. And that's Lucas Van Ness, as you can see there. Edge out of Iowa. He plays more defensive end right now, and he can play D-tackle all the way out to the edge. So it just gives you someone to put on the line with Grady Jarrett and Arnold Ebiketie. They're going to get after the quarterback very well with Lucas Van Ness, and he's young. So you got a lot of time to get production out of him as well. The Chicago Bears did trade out of the number 1 overall pick before the free agency period began. And I think that's because they wanted to make sure that they could fill some needs first. And so they got the number 1 pick out. They got DJ Moore. They got a few other weapons there. They didn't really spend big on the offensive line. And that's because there's not too many offensive linemen that you can do that with in free agency right now. And so I think they're going to be targeting their tackle of the future in Paris Johnson Jr. I think he projects as the better left tackle, in the next couple of years over Skoronski, even though Skoronski is better technically right now. So that's why I have him here. And then here I have Brian Branch going to the Eagles. This one is a head scratcher because when you look at the Eagles roster, there's just not a whole lot of need. And where you can, take a wide receiver or a corner here, they just paid a lot of corners. They have some wide receivers that are killing it right now already. So it would be nice to do that. However, I did think taking Brian Branch would be good for the future of that secondary because you can put him at safety right now. You can put him at nickel right now. You can move some, people around. And it just gives you a lot of versatility. Plus, he's just a phenomenal player. He's very smart. He's very, he's just very smart as a player. So I really did like this pick for the Eagles because it gives you a hard hitter, sure tackler, and it's just going to clean up a lot of the people that get out of the front 7, which is tough to do against the Eagles. So I think he's a cleanup guy. I put him in the missile position because he's just going to be a missile for me. That brings us to the Tennessee Titans here. With the Tennessee Titans, it's most likely going to be a tackle here. Will Levis is on the board, and that's someone that I always think, man, is this team willing to pull a trigger on a Will Levis? Um, do they have a spot for the quarterback? Would it be wise to take Will Levis when you have Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis there? Do they make it where you can't draft Will Levis? I'm not too sure, but this offensive line has gone through a lot this year, and it would be better to just get one while the getting's good. And Peter Skoronski here would be a good pick. So I like Peter Skoronski. Number 12, I have the first wide receiver off the board here. But it's probably not the one that you think. I really like Jordan Addison, mainly because the Texans just got rid of Brandon Cooks. They have a few slot options, especially with John Mechie coming back healthy. And they have a few odds and ends, but no one to really kind of be that guy. And I don't think there's too many other people that can be that guy other than Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Zay Flowers. I just really like Jordan Addison because he's produced. He made Kenny Pickett look really good at Pittsburgh. And the thing with it is he would just throw the ball essentially 50% of the time it would just go straight to Jordan Addison, and that got him into the NFL. So I think Addison is very underrated. I think there's some prospect fatigue with him. So I do like Jordan Addison as the wide receiver 1 off the board. And then here with the Jets, I don't think this pick gets traded if they trade for Aaron Rodgers. So I'm just going to keep this one here. But if for some reason they do trade this would be the Packers pick as well. And this is where I take the best vertical threat tight end here, just because there's not a lot of holes on the Jets as well. They have a lot of money tied up on certain players, or they have recent draft capital tied up on certain players. And not that it precludes you from taking someone else, but Dalton Kincaid is someone that you can draft right now. He can go out and make an impact right now and just fully flesh out that offense, hopefully for Aaron Rodgers. So I think that would be a really good pick. Here with the Patriots, there's two guys. I really liked Myles Murphy here, but I think I'm going to go with Broderick Jones. The reason why is that tackle seems a little bit more of a need. However, I have taken what's his face? I just saw it. Myles Murphy before. The reason why I like Myles Murphy there is because they have 2 edge rushers, and that's really it in New England right now. And I would expect them to try and get some more depth there. But with Broderick Jones, it kind of fills up that tackle need a little bit better, so that cleans up the tackle spot for the Patriots. Here with the Packers, people say Packers aren't going to do this, Packers aren't going to do that. The reason why I really like Michael Mayer here is because of his skill set of, 1, just being open, and 2, just pushing the ball down the field as well. And it does everything else that you want as a tight end. And so it's not the typical thing to get a receiving weapon for the Packers in the first round. I know that they don't do that often. But when you get someone that not only does the receiving part of being a tight end, but does everything else at this level, I think it's worth doing that because you're getting more than just one player. You're getting basically 2 players. So I really like that for the Packers, but it might be lazy of me to do that, I guess. But I do like that pick for the Pack. And this is where the cornerback market really kind of becomes a high value. They definitely could go a lot higher than this, but this is just my take on it. I think the Commanders go with Christian Gonzalez here. He's my cornerback 1A. Von Witherspoon is my cornerback 1B. They're both very good corners. I prefer Christian Gonzalez, ball skills, whereas most people might prefer the tackling ability of Devon Witherspoon a lot. So kind of just pick what you want. But that's my view with the cornerbacks there. And with the Detroit Lions, I know I went defensive line with Jalen Carter, and they have Aiden Hutchinson there. But Myles Murphy kind of slots in as someone that can kind of just add that extra oomph on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's more of an end than an edge, and that is just like a picking hairs between, is he going to go wide nine, or is he kind of more like suited to get, the edge on the run rather than edge on the passing. So that's why I like Myles Murphy quite a bit, is he has more of that run stopping ability, and he can still pass rush. And I think he plays quite a bit for the Detroit Lions here, so I like Myles Murphy a lot. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock, I have them taking Will Levis. They did sign Baker Mayfield to a small deal, so I think that's good for them right now. But if you get a Will Levis, that would be a very likely spot for a quarterback to go, because Baker Mayfield is there shortly. You give him, the ball to begin with, and then whatever rookie you end up getting, they might, take over by the end of the year. And Will Levis in the first round is great value for, being at 19. With the Seattle Seahawks here, Jackson Smith and Jigba is one I really like, because you can kind of put him in the middle, but also he can take reps for, if DK Metcalf needs to take a few plays off, he can go and play outside. Same thing with Tyler Lockett. So I think it just gives you another person to cycle through that, the wide receiver spot, but he also is rather elite in the slot. So I don't think you can pass that up if you're the Seahawks at this point. And that brings us to the Chargers here. I have them taking Zay Flowers. I think he's the perfect wide receiver for Justin Herbert at this point, because he can win on all three levels. He's got great hands. He fights for the ball in the air, and he gets, run after the catch. So I think he's just an all-around great wide receiver. Obviously, his size is going to push him down the board a little bit. But if he was 6'3", he would be off the board, number 6 or 7. So really, really good find here with Zay Flowers. He could go higher than this with the Patriots if that happens, but I don't know. With the Ravens, I do have them skipping on a wide receiver and taking Joey Porter. Joey Porter is someone that I think they will really like, because he fits a little bit more of that mold that they like. They just lost a corner, and to me, them losing a corner is more important than filling a wide receiver role. And so Joey Porter Jr., I think it fits really good with the Ravens. The Minnesota Vikings, this is a spot where they haven't done a whole lot for the defensive line because they haven't needed to in a while. But you get Kalijah Kancey here. You can find someone that, his skill set alone should be a lot higher. It's just his body pushes him down the board again. And so I think you could get a lot out of Kalijah Kancey. And I feel like Brian Flores would get a lot out of him. So I like that pick quite a bit. With the Jaguars on the board here, I have them taking Deonte Banks. Not that they necessarily need a corner, but I really like the fit there for the Jaguars. You get someone that is just an extreme athlete. I think he's probably the best athlete at that position, and that means a lot more every year in the NFL because you can teach these corners a little bit more. They do learn quite a bit through 7-on-7s and everything, so it's a little bit of an easier projection nowadays, and I feel like that's a really good fit for the Jaguars. With the Giants here, I have them taking a offensive lineman where they have their tackles kind of set. I really like, where is this guy? Is he not here? Oh yeah, there he is. Steve Avila out of TCU. He's a really good guard, and I think his mentality pushes him over O'Cyrus Torrence in my mind. But I could also see O'Cyrus Torrence being taken here. But I think that opens up a lot of space for Saquon Barkley and gives a little bit extra time for Danny Dimes to do his deal. So I think that's very important, and I do like this pick quite a bit. I know that Josh Downs is kind of the popular choice here, but I'm going to go with a more sensible pick maybe. Dallas Cowboys just traded for Brandon Cook, so I'm not doing a wide receiver on this pick. And it's a hard one because there's a lot of things that you could do here. But with the Dallas Cowboys, let's just add more into that defensive line. And Brian Bresee, maybe he needs some time to kind of get his feet under him, and he can do that on the Cowboys defense. But once you get him full go and just getting as much as you can out of him, He's a freak, and he's going to just wreck interior O-line. So I really like that pick. With the Buffalo Bills here, they kind of need an extra guy, wide receiver wise. And to me, that would be phenomenal for them to get Josh Downs. I know that they just took the guy out of Boise State, spacing on his name right now. But this gives you just that down the field option, and maybe it's time to move on from Gabe Davis. I'm not saying he's bad, but maybe this makes Gabe Davis a piece to, trade and, collect some draft capital down the road, or maybe a player of need somewhere else. But it gives you that player that is going to catch the ball. He's down the field often, and he has a lot of versatility in his game. So Josh Downs to the Bills, not the craziest thing ever, but it is kind of crazy that would take him here. I feel like that's a good fit. With the Cincinnati Bengals, this guy's been creeping up the boards quite a bit, but I really like this pick because it's something I think is kind of happening because of the Bengals position only, and that's Darnell Washington. And the reason why I like Darnell Washington here is because he actually is a very good run blocking tight end, and the Bengals essentially get a 6th offensive lineman on the field that is like the scariest wide pop threat of all time. He's big, he's got good hands, he's fast. Now it's a question of what are his routes like, what is his maneuverability like. But, you get the ball to him, you get an extra 10, 15 yards whenever you want, and you get a run blocker. I think that's just a great pick for the Bengals specifically. So that's one I really like. And then here with the New Orleans Saints, this is one where it might be easy to kind of chalk up the Bijan Robinson pick, mainly because they might lose Alvin Kamara for a little bit. But the other reason is it's a great value. If you get Bijan Robinson, you're not as hamstrung to taking Alvin Kamara's contract even further. Kind of gives you flexibility to get out of that and start paying players more relative to their position, so you can start building a better team. And I think Bijan Robinson kind of allows that flexibility, plus you get the 5th-year option with him. With the Eagles here, let's see who they had before. They had Brian Branch. And then here, this is where I went Felix Anudike-Uzama. He's an edge player that has a lot of size, a lot of athletic ability, and the Eagles do develop players. And I think if you get him to develop kind of along the lines of what you get with Philly, this dude would be an animal on their their defensive line. And I think that's just a really good pick there. As far as his size and explosiveness goes, there are players that maybe are a little bit more ready to go right now, but I think that's a really good fit for the Eagles situation. And then the last pick here, this is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is where I went with a tackle, Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. He's not the craziest tackle in the world at all, but he's a very solid tackle, and that's someone that I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs can work with. Maybe he starts off at right tackle first, but I think he has that ability to become the left tackle. And the Chiefs are in a position where they really need to start saving their money, and any chance they can do that at positions of premium value, that's where you have to go. And so I think tackle is the most likely spot here. Anton Harrison is most likely the player there. I just don't know how that fit works, and if there is someone better like a Darnell Wright. So, but this is my mock draft here for the first round. Definitely, I like opinions because this isn't a, I'm standing by this, I'm right, you're wrong. This is for just more information to come out. But I do really like a lot of these picks here, and I do feel like it matches needs, values, and, if someone kind of rose in value, I try to go with that. So let me know what your thoughts are, though. And if you made it to the end of this video, it means you like this content. So like the video, drop a comment, anything that you want. We always respond. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you get more content. But other than that, have a good one. Enjoy this off season.